All right. Okay, so my name's Liz. I'm from Severance, but I lived in Greeley for a really long time, which is how I found out about you guys. I've been to a couple shows. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come and do an interview with me. I've only really done one that was kind of a throwaway interview a long time ago. So I really appreciate that you were taking the time. But is there do you want to introduce yourself anyway?
Yeah, my name is Nathaniel Valdez, and I am the singer, guitar player slash bass player for the band In the Whale, which was around for about 15 years.
Cool. Awesome. So I don't know a ton about your old discography, and I don't really like asking like a ton of questions about work that I'm not super familiar with. But if there's anything that you want to add in along the way, like please feel free.
Okay.
Um, so the first question I have is there a story or like a major theme behind the Chosen at Random album?
Yeah, so the idea was that we had been touring for many, many years before that album was kind of written, and then COVID hit. We had before COVID, we had a Japan tour, we had a Australia tour, and we had just got done recording Vanishing Point, which
Mm,
was the producer Steve Evans, and it was doing like it was going to be our year or whatever. Our
mm,
manager had festivals in the UK, and it was a lot of money, and then all of a sudden it was all gone in like 2 days. So
oh wow.
kind of that album Chosen at Random was kind of written during that time frame, just trying to understand and like 15 years of my life sacrificing and doing everything we can, and sleeping on floors and having engines vans break, and like getting bed bugs from hotels, and like playing shitty gigs, and just trying to make sense of like everything we've sacrificed, and it being just literally ripped away in like
Hmm.
a few. So the idea of chosen at random, it just like it felt like there was no answer. It was just kind of just a random whatever. So it was that album we wrote, and we recorded it in Nashville with Nick Raskulinecz, who's done like every Foo Fighters thing or the Deftones, or he's done all these big bands, and it was kind of like a last ditch effort to try and salvage what we could of what was left from the devastation of um, COVID.
Mm.
It was like weren't able to really recover, so it was kind of an attempt at that. But that's where that record came from. It was kind of a here it is.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I have a little bit of questions. I guess I'll skip ahead to the fourth questions. I have what are your motivations or behind or feelings about the song Smoke Break? And my comment behind that was I personally find that isolation is a big issue among the working class, especially after COVID lockdowns and routines. So I bet writing an album with all that financial burden kind of placed on top, like was lockdown and routine part of that thought process then?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both of those things. Smoke break for me, I was kind of at a point in my life where I was extremely depressed, and it was,
Mm,
I mean, not to be too dark because I'm not at that place anymore, but I was very like suicidal and just kind of isolated myself from friends and family, and just kind of like began to spiral. And I wrote that song in like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just kind of like that's exactly how I was feeling at the time. And it's really dark, and it's about God doesn't care, or nobody cares, and this is just kind
yeah.
of how I was going to end. And I felt like it was not just me that's had these thoughts, so it was important for us to write it down and play it, because a lot of people said it's helped me find kind of balance in being in the same situation. So isolation and isolating myself and not really doing myself any favors, is kind of where that was at.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Makes sense. Um, what was the motivation or feelings behind the song Drug Dealer? I understand that it's partially driven by a taste for the pharmaceutical industry. Probably has some things in line with isolation there too, but I was wondering if you have any opinions about that, or maybe, people say not to really interject into politics. So if you don't want to, I totally understand, but you feel that politics maybe has a hand in that as well. Or growing up in Greeley, I feel like I saw kind of a lot of weird stuff. So it was interesting that you wrote about that as well.
Yeah, I worked at the Juvenile Assessment Center in Greeley, Colorado for many years, like 4 years, and
Oh,
have a
wow.
master's degree in educational psychology. And the biggest drug dealer in the world, or at least in America, is like a pharmaceutical company. I mean, what's the incentive for them to want you to be well? Like, you don't keep paying money if you're well. So
Mhm.
the idea behind the song, I mean, it's not really politics. It's kind of just like straightforward. Like, they're pushing drugs, trying to keep people addicted. I mean, even now in hindsight, looking back at all of the Oxycontin and all that stuff that was pushed back in the early 2000s, and how many people's lives were ruined. And I
Mhm.
mean, I was born in the 80s, so it's like we got to see and live through knowing family members that are just like, oh, they hurt their back and now they're a drug addict, and now they've literally ruined their life when something could have been fixed, instead of just like, you know, big corporations just like, oh, we're gonna make a big bottom line on this, so off the backs of
Mhm.
just regular people, and it's okay. So that's what that song's about.
That makes sense. No, I definitely agree. What was the inspiration for the album art for Chosen at Random? The painted white lighters were available at a show I went to, and I regret not getting one. But I've always had a superstition about like not keeping white lighters in your pocket or whatever. So I was wondering if it was kind of a play on that, or something else. But I like simple covers that kind of leave interpretation for a lot of personal meaning to be added on.
Right. Yeah, it's the mix of the white lighter being unlucky in the first place, because it's
Mm,
like, yeah, who, Marilyn Monroe and like a few other famous people, like Kurt Cobain had a white lighter on him with the day he was unalived. And
mhm.
um there's definitely the superstition of the white lighter being unlucky, right? And so the idea of chosen at random is like, you could choose any one of these, but they're all unlucky and you're not going to win.
Yeah,
So that was kind of the concept behind, there's 50 lighters here. Every one of them's a bad choice, but you have to choose something.
yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um,
It's kind of a hard concept that we tried to like narrate, but I mean, not many people like. Actually, most people I've even talked to like don't even know that a white lighter's unlucky. So it was like, maybe it was
yeah,
too or too niche of a concept, I guess.
sure. No, I think the first time I saw the album cover, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But the more I thought about it, like I've always considered white lighters unlucky. Um, and no, I thought that was cool because, why not put a little bit of mystique into things, I guess. I don't know, but I thought
Yeah,
that was cool.
yeah, that was kind of the idea and the concept, just knowing that, like, I mean, it's unlucky, and you have to choose one, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Um, so next question. I'd never heard of the Taco Bell and Quiznos artist programs till it was on your Wikipedia page, which I thought was interesting. But can you tell me what that process and experience was like? The Taco Bell one still exists. But I found out
Yeah,
that people with like felonies can't apply for that, which is really interesting.
Yeah. It was like so early on in Denver, I believe Quiznos is a Colorado
Hmm.
started, and one of the main reps early on came to one of our shows and offered this program, and we were like, I don't even understand what you mean. Like, it's free food? They're like, well, it's gift cards, X amount of money on a gift card. You just have to post about us, because that was the early age of, being tagged and stuff. And like, I mean, it's commonplace now, but like back then it was like, it was a big deal. You have to use the hashtags and all this
Hmm.
stuff. So that was the kind of like the payoff for Quiznos is like, oh, this artist that's at South by Southwest, or this artist that's playing Red Rocks right now just ate a Quiznos sandwich or something like that. So we were able to work out a deal where it was like, oh man, I think it was like just $1,000 or something worth of sandwiches, which is a lot, being a poor band. Like, I was living in my car for months, so I was like, oh yeah, that's a good move.
Yeah.
So um Taco Bell was kind of similar. It was kind of the same idea. That one came about because we had to apply to it. And they're like, you have to have, and I forget the requirement, but it was like 30 shows a year. And at the time, we were like playing 280. So it was like, oh, yeah, no problem. We got that. I haven't been home in like 6 months. Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah.
So it was same idea. It was really kind of cool because we were so broke, but there's only so much Quiznos and there's only so much Taco Bell you can eat before you're like, my God, can we eat
Yep.
like a real salad or something?
Yeah, no, I feel that. Working fast food restaurants for so long, like half the reason I feel like to work at a restaurant is because you get discounts or there's food there, and it saves a little bit of money there as well, but at the same time, then it's like, well, now I'm just kind of stuck on this for how long?
Right. Yeah. It kind of, I mean, when I was in Greeley, I worked part time at Olive Garden, the one that was over there by the movie theater.
Mhm.
I worked there, and after I had left there, I hadn't eaten Olive Garden for like 10 years. I just couldn't do it. Like,
Mhm.
just even about it at a time, I was like, oh God, please no.
Mhm. No, I feel
So
that. Yeah. Um Shoot. All right. How did your background in psychology affect the way that you write or the topics and moods you focus on? I recently found out that Kendrick Lamar sat in on some psychology classes in, say, 2022. My own interest in the field drives a lot of my art and music and hobbies, so I was curious about that.
yeah, between like the psychology and like growing up in a mortuary family, it's been like really a weird kind of like, my wife will say I'm pretty blunt when it comes to talking about death. I'll just explain it because I grew up in a mortuary family. It's like, oh, he was beheaded, or he died because he got crushed between the two cars, and just kind of like matter of fact. And the psychology helps me to understand that some of the things I say are insane.
Yeah.
But like, the psychology was trying to understand myself, as well as like try and kind of pinpoint the world itself too. It's helpful because it's like I'm able to use some of the skills and like take a step back. Why am I feeling that way? Asking those questions, asking what it is that's making me emote a certain way, to help me write lyrics to like personify that lyrically. So it's pretty helpful. It's also helpful with like um communicating with promoters and communicating with agents and stuff like that, because it's a bit of a verbal game when you're booking shows and promoting your band and talking to people on the radio. Everyone has their own intent and own what their goal should be, right? So
Mm,
understand their goal and kind of curating your message through their goal helps build yourself as a artist, builds yourself as a communicator, and builds yourself as somebody that they want to talk to again.
that makes sense. That makes
It's
sense.
really important. It's really important.
Cool. Um, so to follow up with that, I've thought about getting into more, I don't want to say get into, so it's kind of serious, but look into mortuary work. What was being an undertaker like? And then how did that all fit in with college and music? I think that's a really interesting intersection.
Yeah, I was never an undertaker because you have to be able
I
to do.
apologize.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's common. You have to be able to embalm. I never embalmed, but I helped. So I would be considered a clerk or an assistant.
Mm,
My grandma owned a mortuary, and the first person I ever helped dress, I was 15 years old, and it was the guy that I used to buy worms from to go fishing. So in a small town, you kind of know everybody and just kind of see things, and like you're kind of exposed to those things pretty young, or I was exposed to those things pretty young. And then remind me of the question. I guess I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry.
what was it? I guess I didn't phrase the question very well when I wrote it, but mainly what was it like? And then how does that part or maybe facet or interface of your life fit in with how your college experience and music experience was? Did you find like there was a lot of disconnect there, or did you feel like with psychology it was kind of a way to help explain what what you were thinking about and how you were kind of viewing the world?
Yeah. With growing up in a around death all the time, it makes things pretty. Um, my personality is very aggressive with like getting things done, doing things because I know we're going to die, at some point. So I'm
Mm,
very like active with just pushing and going. So it was more of a drive that I got, I would say, from the mortuary world. Um, Also, it gives me a perspective, or it has given me a perspective in life where it's not that bad. Like things could happen. Like on the road, we've blown up multiple engines. We've been on tour and it just blew up, and it's like, oh, that's $8,000. I'm like, at least we're alive. Like there's always we got to keep pushing. It's not going to stop us.
mhm.
Uh, it got hard when I moved from Greeley to Denver. I started working at a bigger mortuary. All of it Crown Hill. I don't know if you know Crown Hill at all. It's got the large or very large standing mausoleum, freestanding mausoleum. I worked there, and then I also worked part time with the Denver County Coroner. So I worked murder scenes and I worked homicide scenes. But in the Whale was starting to take off during that time, and it got really difficult to like juggle both of those things. So eventually, I had to quit working the mortuary world. But I loved it. It takes a certain type of person. A lot of people want to try and work in the mortuary world, but they don't have the word that my grandfather uses, tact, which is like just being like hyper observant about what's going on. This is somebody's worst day of their life.
Yep.
You have to be able to not take that home with you. You have to be able to like, I just buried 3 babies last week. It's like you got to be able to disconnect that stuff so that you're not, you don't get too depressed. So a lot of people wouldn't last very long because they don't know how to do that. But when you grow up in it, it's like, oh, I know how to turn that off,
Yeah.
which makes it kind of cold sometimes, like with like other relationships, like with my wife and I will, sometimes I just like totally I can disconnect, and she's like, aren't you bothered by that? I'm like, not really. It's just maybe it's a
Yeah.
bad
No, I feel that when I was growing up, I volunteered at a lot of church funerals. And so we'd be doing like setting up and tearing down all the food and reception and stuff. And it's kind of a weird, because I then worked in restaurant industry later on, it kind of is the same feel when you're setting up, but then like that switch of like, oh, but this is someone's worst day of their life, and it does feel a little bit cold to kind of just be like, oh, but this is work, and like it's really sad sometimes. It kind of hits you, but um I also have a little bit of a weird sort of coldness or disconnect about death sometimes, so that's encouraging to know that that's not just a solitary experience, I guess.
Yeah, it's common. I mean, honestly, to be able to just kind of just turn it off a little bit. I mean, you have to be able to emote when you need to, but like, not to say you're a psychopath or I'm a psychopath, but it's just like you have to be able to,
Yeah.
you know, not let that come home with you. I mean, you have other people that you care about that love you or whatever, and you don't want to bring them down, you know?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Um, so how did Eric get involved in this project? Was it his first band musical partnership, or did he had other projects as well?
Eric had been playing in the Greeley music scene for a while. He was in a band called What About Pluto? And funny enough, I played bass for them for like a month or two, just
Mhm.
kind of like that band was about to break up or whatever. But Eric and I kind of met each other through the Greeley music scene. There's only like so many things happening in Greeley, and I wasn't going home over the weekend. A lot of people would, and they would leave Denver or leave to Denver or go to bigger shows or something. But we really just kind of like decided to make Greeley a scene and try and support it and go to shows and do that thing. So he and I became friends because we inevitably saw each other everywhere. We were just kind of always hanging out, going to shows. I'd watch his band, he'd watch my band. I was in like a three-piece kind of like Weezer band. And one day I started writing a bunch of music because, knowing that I kind of get manic. I just don't stop writing music. Like right now, you're looking in my little studio, but I literally I've already written the new Graveyard Choir record and working on an instrumental record and just kind of like manic. I just can't stop. So I wrote a bunch of music and I suggested and gave it to Eric as on a CD. And I'm like, it'd be cool if you have any ideas, like knowing you're a good drummer, maybe you could check this out. I honestly didn't expect him to hit me up, but I wrote my Sharpie my phone number on it, and he hit me up, and we started hanging out, started playing, and early in the whale was like 100% undigestible music. It was so weird. Like
Yeah.
we were riffing, like no lyrics, but then they're like I would play a tape of like bird sounds over the top or people yelling, just like
Mhm.
avant kind of art or whatever. But eventually, over years, it's like we kind of curated what we became. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of how we in the Greeley scene. We just met going to shows.
No, that makes sense. It's funny you say that. I'm working on kind of my first real project. I've had a lot of ideas about what I would put together myself, and I decided just give it a stab at myself, and then if I ever am able to work with someone else and I have something to show them that's like a full finished product at least, and it sounds pretty whack. Like I'm doing that kind of Pink Floyd thing where it's like you got like I have a tattoo machine, so I was like, oh, what if I put this as like a sound, in the background, and so I know that's like early on what a lot of people do, and it kind of depends on whether it turns out well or not, but um
Yeah, it's
no,
cool. A lot of cool ideas come like that.
yeah. um let's see. Let's Are you the only person that writes lyrics, or is it kind of a collaborative effort there?
It's only me. Eric has tried to write some stuff in the past early on, just to try his hand at it because he had never tried, and he decided that it's not his lane. So
Mhm.
um, I've always written the lyrics for all of In the Whale and basically every project I've ever touched.
Mhm. Oh, it makes sense. Yeah, my lane doesn't feel like beats or anything, so putting together stuff, I'm like, feel like I'm breaking a lot of rules, but I don't know. Sometimes I think making art of any kind feels like breaking rules at the same time.
Yeah, you definitely got to push yourself out of the comfort zone because I feel like sometimes you will never know if you're able to do that certain thing unless like early on, I was forced to have to write lyrics because nobody was doing it. And then early on before that, I was a drummer, but they're like, no, we have another guy who plays the drums. So then I started playing bass guitar. And then they're like, well, we can find someone that plays bass, but no one can sing. So I kind of just got moved there, like from high school bands up to the front where I didn't want to be, and ended
Mhm.
up being the singer. It was like, I'm not that guy, but I guess I am now.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I feel that. Um, what was it like hearing your music had appeared on the radio? Did you get to listen to it live? And how did you find out that it was going to?
Oh, I lost you there for a second. You asked me about the first time that our music was played live or on the radio, correct?
Yep.
In a
Hmm.
grit. I was actually told the very first time that it was being played on the radio, and it was for Channel 93.3's Hometown for the Holidays. Back in the That was really a big contest. We had
Mm,
submitted the song Heels off of the EP Cake. And I had a friend text me who said, I just heard you on the radio. That's awesome. And I was, well, I like early on, I was like, holy, I never thought, it blew my mind. Yeah, I still think about it sometimes, like, because it was such a cool moment.
yeah. No, that's cool. I always wonder how that must feel like the first couple times, or like people whose songs get played on the radio for like 10, 20, 40 years. It's like that must be kind of crazy, to different levels, but
Sure.
um yeah. Um I don't tend to pay attention to charts too much, but was there ever a favorite chart achievement that you had?
We made the Heat Seekers one time, which for a non-signed band was like kind of a big deal early on. I forget what the song was, but we made Heat Seekers charts, and that's like the charts that like top 40 pull from. So it's
Mhm.
like, but it's always bands that have labels, and it's always people that have like support, and we had nothing. It was just us, two shitheads from Greeley.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Um, what's been your most interesting tour experience with a fan? I've only really met like a couple musicians other than people who are, local in Greeley. I would meet more people, but I feel like I'm just gonna be like, oh my gosh, like thank you so much for writing, and probably say something that they've heard a million times. And I don't want to be someone who's like, your music saved my life, because like, well, that may be true in like some ways, it's like it feels like a lot of pressure to put on someone. So has
Hmm.
there been any interesting experiences you've had with fans?
I had a creepy, somewhat disturbing situation in Atlanta.
Hmm.
Played a show, and this fan came up to me and didn't say much, but gave me a gift. It was like a birthday card, right? It was like a birthday card. It wasn't my birthday, which was also kind of strange, but it said, I threw it away, and I probably should have kept it right now, but I was so freaked out at the time, and I forget what it said. It was like, it was like a poem of
Mm.
something, but it had a picture of me like when I was a kid, and it had my home address written on the back of it, like somebody in Atlanta. And I'm like, okay, that's unsettling, I guess. So that was a weird situation where it was like this poem, and I've never seen or heard from this person again, but it was just very much like, oh, okay. Um, we've had
That,
death threats before. I've had people jump up on stage. I've been attacked 3 times on stage. Um, First time I was attacked on stage was in Saskatoon, Canada. A woman jumped up and um, I think she was really drunk, but she got really mad and took my microphone and cracked my tooth. The second time was in Jacksonville, Florida. Um, it was an opening band. He tried to come over and knock me down, but I stepped out of the way. He broke my guitar and my mic stand. And the third time, there's a video of it. A dude jumped on stage and started breaking all of our gear in Tempe, Arizona. And then he got arrested that night.
oh wow, that's crazy. I
Yeah,
don't know.
punk rock, baby. Let's go.
Always. No, I've known some people I've seen some shit happen where people want to crash on stage at tours and stuff, and I never quite get that. I've seen so many things happen, like living up here, that I kind of forget some things that have happened, but sometimes, you remember something like that and you're like, I don't, that's crazy. I don't know how I would react if that was me.
The first one messed with me, that I was like, what's going on? Am I going to be attacked? I didn't even know that was an option. It was kind of like new fear unlocked kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But then, it's only happened 3 times, which is 3 more than most people have ever had in their life, but it's fine.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Um, Hopefully, this is a little bit less. What's your most interesting tour experience with another musician or band?
Mm. Um,
If you feel
we,
comfortable sharing, I totally get if you don't want to.
I'm an open book. There's nothing weird. We toured 2 years basically back to back with the band Agent Orange. Um, and one of our vans our van broke. So we were in the van with them, and they let us ride with them through the whole tour. And one day we were in Indianapolis, and they had a pass to go on the Indy, the racetrack. So we drove the tour van on the racetrack, and I think about it kind of often, like how cool that was. That was a cool experience. Um, Other experiences, man, there's tons of experiences. Trying to think, like, what kind of experiences were you looking for, like drama or anything like that, or?
Oh, dude, I'm not interested in hearing drama necessarily. Maybe like I said, I could improve on phrasing these questions, but I guess maybe like interesting collaborative moment. I think I have another question down here later on about like what was the most impactful, or like who did you tour with that you were kind of like maybe a little bit fangirly over, or like was a really cool experience.
Mhm.
But I'm not trying to start drama.
There's a lot of bands we've toured with that I've had to kind of fangirl out. Like when we toured with Jaden's Addiction, I fangirled out. The Offspring, I fangirled out. The Descendants, I fangirled out. Um, the Darkness, I fangirled out. The Toadies, man, I love the Toadies so much. That's also a cool experience. Speaking of collaboration, we did an acoustic tour with them, and I got to play harmonica on stage with them every night for like 3 weeks. It was great. We've also collaborated with Ryan, who is the guitar player for Poison the Well. He played on one of our songs, our acoustic version of Smoke Break. He recorded a guitar part for it. It's pretty cool. Man, yeah, there's so many bands that I've like, oh my gosh, like Go Bordello. We toured with them, and I was, whoa, I love, so many.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Um, there it is. Let's see here. What was it like seeing your music reviewed in newspapers like the Chicago Tribune, or are there other journalistic achievements that you're proud of and remember off the top of your head?
There's a few in from the UK when we toured out there with a band called Evil Scarecrow that were brutally honest, but also really uplifting because of how they liked the band. You know, it was really nice to have people from other parts of the world like our band. It was important to me. Like when we toured, we played Poland. We played in a castle. It was like crazy, and there was a review, and it was awesome. It was so much. You know, I love all that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. My phone is doing that. Excuse me. I gotta plug my phone in. Apparently, that's
Oh no,
the
you're
thing.
good.
If that works. Okay. Yeah. So when the Chicago Tribune came out about our Lollapalooza, I think it was Lollapalooza set. It was pretty like so much was happening for us at the time that I read it like 2 months after the fact. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Damn, I wish I would have known about that earlier, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, you're moving we were moving so fast. We were doing so much and just like tour after tour after tour and just getting off the tour with Electric Six just to get on tour with the President of the United States of America, and then like right into Guttermouth and then Agent Orange, and it was just like nonstop and flying, and so it's pretty just felt like I was living through a plane crash.
Yeah. I can imagine that. Yeah, I think about what tour must be like, and I've never been on tour myself. I've always been a performer, but kind of being stuck performing up, just in northern Colorado, it's like it sounds like a completely different experience to be, on a bus going a bunch of different places. I always um thought about Eminem, and he was mostly like a studio recording artist, and he said he didn't like do a bunch of tours, so once I started thinking about like what tour life was like or could be like, I was like, that's it's kind of crazy to think about that. It must be like living a million miles an hour or something.
It's kind of like a bad. Do you know the movie Groundhog Day?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically the same thing. It's just different climates in different cities. Kind of like a low grade fever all the time. Just always like I'm just tired.
Yeah.
always trying to just make your money and make people happy and make yourself happy in some way and just keep moving.
Mm. So not to quote Wikipedia too much, but I like them because they tend to have the best kind of lineup of people's accomplishments, whether they're right or wrong. I think I said you were an undertaker, and I took that from Wikipedia, and you said that was wrong. So
Yeah.
if any of this is wrong, I do apologize. It says the band's inclusion in the Lollapalooza lineup was a major distinction as they are among the 5 Colorado artists to play the event in the last decade. How did you feel about playing that festival? And then did it feel like important representing Colorado, or was it kind of just like you felt, was it like a personal thing?
I never thought we would have been ever asked to play Lollapalooza. And when it happened, I guess it was just kind of shocked because I remember the West were doing a big article about us saying like this band is doing this thing, and I'm like, whoa, no one is no one has ever cared about me this much all of a sudden. It's just kind of overwhelming. So it
Mhm.
felt like there was a lot of weight on my shoulders or on our shoulders to do a good job, but also we didn't really care because kind of had a chip on our shoulder too because we like no one really cared. The band from Greeley, nothing comes from Greeley, and we had to
Yeah.
kind of fight stigma. We had to fight the idea that oh, it's just two of you, so you don't get paid that much. Like the people wouldn't pay us as much as they would pay like a four-person band, and then it's just kind of an uphill battle. Like even now, like some people accept that like two a two-person band is not a genre. Like people are like, oh, you're just like the Black Keys. I'm like, we sound entirely different. Oh, you guys are just like Death from Above. I'm like, we sound totally different. It's not a genre, you know. So
Mhm.
we had to fight all those things, but I remember there being just kind of like a target on our back for a little bit, especially with some of the Denver scene because we had made so many people upset that we were doing well, which is funny, but also telling.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I didn't know that that had happened. I know that, that kind of gets a little bit dicey between musicians a lot of times. And, I've seen various at college, people want to, kind of have their lane and stay, have their inner fights there. So that's a little bit of a bummer that you I always feel like, at least in my personal experience, I've met people from Fort Collins who would kind of look down on Greeley and say, "Oh, you're from Greeley, you're just in Greeley," and I'm like, well, "Yeah, but I don't know why that's a problem, you know." But
It was kind of like once you got
um,
out of the state, at least when we got out of the state touring, like people wouldn't they didn't care where you're from. They just say Colorado, right? So it was mostly fighting for some respect in the state, you know. That's where like most of the issues were, just trying to fight in state, you know.
mhm. No, that makes sense. Um, so this was a little bit interesting. It says you served for as official correspondent for Westward at the 2015 SXSW Music Festival in Texas. What was that
Yeah.
like?
So after we had done the Lollapalooza, a lot of the media for Westward was really into, or the writer, the main editor was very much a fan. So he knew we were playing South by Southwest that year, and he's like, "Do you guys want to be official South by Southwest liaisons?" And I'm like, "What does that even mean?" He's like, "Just tell us the stupid stuff you're getting into." And basically, we would send pictures,
Mhm.
just kind of like little like two paragraph things. We spent a week, a full week in Austin, Texas. So we played like 7 shows, which is like crazy for that for that festival. And we were just kind of like in between too much drinking and like trying to communicate and see shows, and our we were kind of just like tongue in cheek and like funny. Well, we say funny, but like just talking shit about things like, oh, look at this dude. It looks like he fell out of a hot topic, you know,
Yeah,
like kind of that kind of stupid stuff, you know, like ripping on ourselves as well, you know, like just kind of just like the two idiots from Colorado are down here, you know, you know,
yeah.
just being just kind of just being funny.
No, I feel that. I feel that. I've I try to talk more shit about myself than other people these days. I feel like growing up in a dance studio environment, it gets really catty over there, and the kind of transitioning over to music where it's like you don't want to be talking like that, it's not like I even liked it over there. So, that
Right.
talking shit about yourself will usually get you somewhere, right? Or it can anyways, social media. So, I have a couple questions here about labels. So if you don't want to answer those, I totally understand. But first one is, what are some of the differences of working independently versus under a label?
There's some big differences. When you're independent, you don't really have to ask what the timeline is, and a label will have a timeline on when things are coming out, what things are happening, what you need to be posting, kind of just like curating your schedule for the year. When you're
Mhm.
independent, you can do anything you want. And I mean, you could do that too with a label, but they're like, you have to do this by this day, and you have to do this by this day. And um, independent, you can just kind of set your own schedule and do your own thing. There is a difference in like having to figure out funding. A label will give you some money up front, but it's like a bank; you still owe them, So uh, it's nice to not have to have that money out at the beginning, because the idea is that hopefully they'll be able to get you on a tour. You can make some money back and recoup and be able to like everybody's happy, kind of an idea. It's hard to live under a thumb where like you have to sell X amount of CDs or vinyl to just break even. That kind of sucks. You kind of still have to do that when you do it independent, because you pay for the money, you pay the money to get your merchandise. You have to play shows to recoup said money, so you're still doing it, but it's kind of, no one's yelling at you about it. So there's pluses and minuses. I think currently in the current culture, I don't know if labels can really help artists much anymore. I think unless it's a major label, you have a little community, I guess, but that's about it.
Sure, that makes sense. I guess this next one is kind of not relevant then based on that. This is a little specific, but listening to your music, I had this idea, would you categorize or say your work is influenced by horrorcore at all? It's kind of, it's bigger in some hip hop and rap scenes. I don't hear a ton of bands or musicians I feel qualify as that, but it interests me. So
Yeah, I've never, like, I like watching horror movies, and I like watching old, like, really bad sci-fis, which also has that hinge of horror, So I don't know if it's directly influenced as much as like living through a mortuary family or any of that would, So I kind of feel like I try to speak more to real scenarios and real life stuff as opposed to being more in the horror vein, But I do appreciate that art form for sure.
that makes sense. Um, this is a little bit serious, but I've been thinking about it more since I've been writing music and thinking about like how that can kind of the trail of events that could happen after. But do you feel that music has the ability to shape people's lives and viewpoints and experiences more strongly than other forms of art? And then does that make you feel kind of serious about it, or you're just kind of like, well, I just got to go and then see what happens?
Yeah, early on in the Whale was very like have a good time party kind of music, and then it became more serious because I started to take it really seriously, because I feel like I changed as a person, and I feel like music to me can influence me, but I think you have to be open to letting it like open up your mind a little bit to maybe give you some ideas and maybe influence you. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people that listen to music don't look to be influenced. They just want something in the background. They just want something to curate a fun time or curate the vibe for a party or something. But I've always gotten a lot of how I feel and understanding how I feel through music. It's been able to be a vehicle for me to understand myself and understand the world around me. That being said, I don't think everyone does. And I think that there's a lot of people that aren't even open to it. For example, my wife and we're entirely different. She couldn't name you bands or songs, or she can barely remember half the lyrics. And that makes us, works for us. But it's also like, she's not a person that would be like, this song reworked how I think. Me, I like, my wife will find me sometimes out in the studio, just like crying because I'm like, man, just listen to these words. Just my God, they're
Yeah.
so good. Something so real here. She's like, that's a cool song. And just kind of like, people, we're all different. So I feel like, yes, music can change people's lives, but you have to be a certain type of person to be accessible. It has to be something accessible to them,
Yeah. No,
or
what was that? I'm sorry.
they have to be able to be receptive to it.
Mm. Yeah, writing my own music, it's kind of like a balance of like, I don't necessarily care if people take it as seriously as I do, but in the process of making it, it feels really serious to me. So I'm like, where's the balance of, trying to make something appealing for other people versus, writing what I am trying to really say. So
Yeah.
I agree. Um, let's see. What brought you to where you are now? Moving across the mountain sounds like a big change.
Well, I live here in Denver, so I'm not really like too far over a mountain or anything.
Did you not? See, I'm telling you, I getting my information off of Wikipedia might be, usually I feel like it's a little bit more accurate in terms of what's going on. So,
Yeah,
thank you for correcting me.
I live in Denver, so I didn't move too far away. I'm kind of still in the middle of everything, and still like just here, doing it. Eric lives up in excuse me, he lives up in Fort Collins, um, with his wife, who is also in the new band that we're in. And then, man, yeah, we're still in Colorado. I didn't move to Grand Junction. I was planning on honestly moving to Nashville at one point, but I'm like, why am I going to go to a place I really don't like?
No, I feel you. I've thought about moving many, many different places, but at a certain point, and living up here in northern Colorado, it's a little hard because I've lived here my whole life, and so it's like when everyone knows everyone, it gets a little bit complicated at a certain point. So, but Denver sounds really dope. I've spent a lot of time there. Um, let's see, I kind of already covered that. What motivates you to keep going on hard days?
Yeah, it's hard. Uh, I don't even know. It's just something in me that just always like kicks my own butt into gear to just like, this might suck right now, but it might be good later. So it's like that the maybe something will happen kind of idea, or maybe someone will like this, always pushes me, I guess.
Mhm.
But for days, like I said, I'm kind of manic when I do things. So I'll make a bunch of art and then I'll feel real. My wife calls it the bottom end of the swing, because I get real, like I bottom out. I just get really like dark and tired and just unmotivated for like 4 or 5 days, and then kind of bounce back. But it's hard to do that, just like have that get back up. Like what makes you get back up? It's like, well, trying to make things good for other people as well as yourself, you know. You got to kind of do it for yourself in the first place, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I've been unemployed for a little bit, not to like talk about myself too much, but find in that I've kind of found like, you know, the desire to stop wishing that I was making music and like, what if I actually just tried? It's not going to sound very good for a while, but it's what I really want to do. And it's kind of like the only thing that keeps me going on it sometimes, you know, not the only thing, but you
Yeah.
know, I think that's probably something that a lot of artists or musicians can relate to. It's kind of, it sounds dramatic and stuff, but you know, the tortured artist persona, you know, I feel like there's a little bit of that in a lot of artists.
Yeah, I think it makes for good art, honestly. Once you've had and you've been to the bottom, you can kind of see a bigger picture, I think. When things have been hard, it helps you to understand what the gravity of words are and what the gravity of life is, and maybe has a better point of view that you can write from or create from.
Makes sense. Um, what song or track or project are you most proud of?
I'm proud of all the In the Whale stuff. I felt like it did really well, and I felt really accomplished with all that we did and like all the places we went, and how many cool people we got to meet. I feel like that was really, really awesome. I'm excited for the new thing I'm doing with the Graveyard Choir, because it's like, not only is it just like In the Whale was just Eric and I. That was just the two of us, just us against everybody, is what it felt like. But with this band, it's 5 people, and we get to make more jokes, and we have just kind of like a more fun time. It's not as cut and dry. Like In the Whale was like, I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna die, kind of a feeling. Kind of like a definitive be all. That's it. And with Graveyard Choir, it's fun and jokey, and we've had a lot of great success right out of the gate, which is awesome. We just got nominated as in the top 20 of hundreds of Colorado bands as top Colorado band. So
Oh, that's dope.
yeah, but we didn't do it because we wanted to be nominated as a whatever. I just like writing music, so I just want to do it because I can't get any better if I don't make music, and I can't make my voice heard if I don't say anything. So I got to do those things,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, favorite collaboration that you've achieved? I don't know if you've done a ton of collaborations or like worked with other artists on songs.
Yeah. I got to work with Nick Wheeler, who is the writer for, he's the guitar player, but he's also the writer for All American Rejects. So he and I wrote a song together,
Hmm.
and kind of, it was really awesome to work with somebody that has Grammys, like big, well-known songs and things like that. So it was kind of cool to pick his brain and like work through things, and like, this is where my mind goes. He's like, okay, give me this a different point of view. So it pushed me, and it's good. That was cool.
Nice. Um, is there a dream collaboration that you're manifesting? Or is that kind of not something that you think about? Is that hold you back maybe?
I would love to work with BJ Burnham, who is the singer for American Aquarium. It's an Americana band.
Hmm.
They are pretty prolific in the scene. I would love to. I met him actually recently and gave him our demo, but it's like it would be awesome to work with somebody like that, you know?
Oh yeah. Let's see. I think the last question I have is number one way that you balance work and your social personal life. It sounds like we kind of work a little bit similarly where project kind of takes priority and it's maybe a little bit manic. But
Yeah.
does your personal life kind of ever just, do you feel like it's completely put to the side in order to focus on music?
In the past, it would be like a lot of my personal life would be put on the side, but I have a 2-year-old now, so you can't really put a
Yeah.
2-year-old, you know. So I'm stay-at-home dad, so I watch him all day and take care of him because it is so expensive to have any childcare. Um, so my wife thankfully makes enough for all of us, and then I make money with like band stuff and like touring stuff. And I work for a TikTok guy from time to time. I do artwork. So I'm doing other things. But in the past, you know, when I didn't have a kid, like I would just be in the studio for until it was done, you know. But now I break things up a lot more. Like I'll work as soon as like we're done talking, I'll probably go till 1 in the morning and then wake up and take care of the kid at 5 in the morning and just kind of that cycle forever.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Cool. Well, I don't know. Is there anything that you want to talk about? Any Graveyard Choir upcoming projects or anything that you want to talk about?
The Graveyard Choir has another album coming out. It'll be coming out this year. We're doing an album a year because I can't stop writing music. And it will be coming out November 1st or Halloween. Um, and I'm excited about that. And I'm excited for the future. And I think that I'm going to just keep, as long as people keep coming around and listening to my music, I'll keep making it, you know? So that's about all I have.
Cool. Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully Google Meets, it doesn't send the recording over for like a day or so. So it'll take a little bit for it to appear over on my end, but there's anything that you want to like send or add over to me or anything afterwards, like feel free. But I really appreciate your time. This is, like I said, I'm not super used to interviews. Been kind of locked away in my house for a little bit, so I'm not used to talking to other people as much anymore. But I really appreciate your time and a perspective. It's really valuable.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And as you're doing this, if you feel like you need some other stuff, just let me know. I can send you something or whatever.
Cool. Well, thank you
But
so much.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your night working. I also have some stuff to get to, so it was really nice talking.
Nice talking with you all as well. And hopefully we'll see you guys or see you around Greeley sometime.
Yeah, hopefully. All right. Cool. Catch you later.
Bye.